Welcome, everyone, to the three biggest killers in retirement: risk, fees, and taxes. I'm Imran Razvi. I go by Raz. This is Daniel Razvi, a tax attorney.
Yes, and we are a father-son team at Higher Ground Financial Group. So we talk about those three biggest killers: risk, fees, and taxes. And do you have to take a lot of risk to get reward? Are they always linked?
Not necessarily. People think so, but you can actually get a decent rate of return without taking a lot of risk. And in retirement, you can't afford to take that risk. So we have to really take a look at all the different scenarios and see what fits best for each person. We are fiduciaries, so we do talk to you individually on that.
And then what about fees? Is a 1% fee really reasonable? Is that what you should be paying?
You'll be surprised to find out that 1% fee can cost you a lot of money. And you don't necessarily have to pay a fee if you're not getting anything good out of it. If it's just holding the money with the brokerage and they're charging you a fee, I don't know if it's worth it.
And we'll show you today how even a 1% fee can eat away 31% of your growth over time. So it's really important to lower those fees as much as possible.
Yes. And what about taxes? You're the tax guy. I mean, how much can we really save a client?
Well, on average, most of our clients are going to save over $1 million by working with us. So, or more than $1 million in taxes. So we'll talk about that. First, let's look at this video here.
Ben, where's all your money gone, Daddy?
Taxes. 6, 9, 10, 11. Let me fix my houses.
Bug, it's okay. It's part of the game.
No, it's not. It's not fun.
It's not fun to what?
It's the worst part of the game.
Oh, it's what?
Taxes.
That's right, folks. And that's why you're joined, because you're starting to feel that same problem. It's the worst part of the game, taxes.
Yes. So hopefully we can minimize those three biggest killers in retirement: risk, fees, and taxes. By doing that, everything else gets better in retirement. So this is about us. This is our family.
I'm on the right-hand side with all the kids, and Daniel's up there with me at the top. He's my firstborn. I have 13 children, and yes, I do know how that happens. We did have 5 by birth and 8 by adoption, so we cheated a little bit. And now I have 7 grandchildren as well.
And this is me and my wife on the left, and our 2 babies. We have 2 of those 7 grandkids here, and they're growing up, and we're really excited to have a growing family.
And when we're not doing financial planning or retirement planning, we have Conquer by Love Ministries. It is a nonprofit organization, conquerbylove.org. We set that up almost 20 years ago to really help parents have the tools necessary to have a better, healthier relationship with their children and heal emotional challenges and needs that children may have. We've written about 45 books that are available on Amazon, available on Conquer by Love. And they're thin books, but they're designed to help people have the skills necessary to really help their children get off medication.
And what we do with our clients, we have 2 firms: Higher Ground Financial Group, Higher Ground Legal. We are 100% virtual. That means all of our client meetings are on video calls, and we have clients all over the country. So we serve clients nationwide. Higher Ground Financial Group is the retirement planning, risk management, income planning firm. And then Higher Ground Legal is my law firm, where we give you advice to reduce and minimize taxes and other legal advice, estate planning, and so on. You may have seen us on one of these other publications on Fox or CNN, or we have weekly radio shows and podcasts as well. So you can check us out on YouTube and anywhere else you get podcasts also.
Absolutely. Being virtual allows our clients to really get a hold of us very quickly instead of calling the office and waiting 3 weeks to get to talk to us. So you can get on an appointment with us even the same day sometimes.
So what do we do for our clients? It's really those 3 biggest killers. If we reduce risk, fees, and taxes, everything else gets better. Your retirement income gets better, you have more protection, and you can pass more to your family.
And as we talked about earlier, we are fiduciaries, except for this. This is a class room meeting, so we don't have any information on you. We can't be a fiduciary if we don't know anything about you. So if you do set up a meeting, and you can click the link and set up a free meeting, and we'll definitely act as a fiduciary there.
So when we put together a plan for our clients, we want to show you what a difference it makes with us versus without us.
Right now, out there on your own, your life expectancy is like here. With me, it's here. Without me, here. With me, without me. With me, without me. So, I wouldn't advise going home, but it's up to you.
So this is Tom Cruise, and it's not really about your life, but it's about your money's life of your money. You want your money to last a lot longer, and with us, it will last a lot longer than without us.
Anybody recognize this guy? Put his information in the comments if you...
Immediately, everybody recognizes him. He's Data, but do you know which scene he's from?
data. This commander data from Star Trek.
Yes.
Right?
But the first part, Victor, was not all of data. It was only insufficient data. Right?
Insufficient data leads to poor choices.
Right.
We want to give you complete and proper data to make good decisions about your money.
That's right. So the definition of tax, a heavy or onerous demand on resources. That's really what a tax is. So we're going to explain to you, it's not just the federal tax or the state tax. There's three types of tax. There's market risk, which is a tax because it's gone. That money's gone. When the market drops, it's not just a paper loss. Your advisor might say it's paper loss, but it's a made-up term. Try spending it. You can't. It's an actual tax. And then advisor tax. That's a fee. Now, if you don't need to pay the fee, then you shouldn't be paying the tax. And then we have the federal and state taxes. And yes, we will definitely get to those as well. But we want to make sure you understand that all three of these are a tax on your resources. All right, here's a tin can, Daniel, and most of us have seen this in the pantry. We don't have a label on it because nobody's sponsoring the show. But anyways, what was the story behind it? It was first invented back in 1810. Why? Well, Napoleon wanted to conquer the world. You guys have heard of Napoleon, right? And he could only go as far as his food would carry him. If the food started spoiling, he would run out of food for his army and couldn't really fight. So he put out a contest, and somebody came up with this tin can idea, which is excellent. It's preserved food. It was sealed well, had a nice lid on it, and there was something not quite right. There was something missing from this. Do you know what it was? In the comments, quick. We don't have much time. Ah, yes, somebody did pick it out. It is the can opener. The can opener didn't get invented until about 50 years later. Before then, you were given a hammer and chisel, and some of the food and dirt and stuff would get damaged, and metal pieces would get in the food, so it wasn't the best way to open it. And without us, and that's what we are, we're the can opener, because you've been working for 50 years or so, putting money aside, saving money for retirement, and now it's time to take it out. Now you need the can opener, and that's who we are. We're going to help you get your money out with less fees, less risk, and less taxes, so your money lasts longer. You can use all of it.
So our agenda for today, as you may have guessed, is risk, fees, taxes. We're going to talk about all three of those, and we'll talk about some new tax laws and expiring tax laws and things that might come up, and then we'll talk about estate planning. We'll have some time for a question and answer if you click the link and make an appointment with us. You'll be able to ask any questions as well. If you want to put one in the comments, we'll try to get to you after the webinar, but we do want to be able to meet you one-on-one to give you good and complete information.
We have a lot of information, so it's very fast. Don't worry, you can try to get the replay later and slow it down, but if you make an appointment with us, we will speak to you much slower then.
So we are coming off two of the best years in like forever. Really, the last time we had 2 years in a row of 20% or more gains was actually 1998. So 2023 and 2024 both had more than 20% returns in the S&P 500. And the last time was 1998. Now, Raz, I was pretty young in 1998. What was happening right around that time? About a year later, was there something?
A year later, we had the big dot-com bubble. So because of the huge gains, the Fed kept raising the rates to try to control this huge inflation and gains, and then we had the dot-com bubble. So
we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but
I think we do. I think we have a commercial real estate bubble that's happening.
We'll get to that in just a second. So we, as humans, sometimes we have very short memories. What happened just a few years ago? 2.5, 3 years ago, we had this 2022 bear market, and it was just about 20% loss by the end of the year. It actually went down by more than 20% and then came back up a little bit right at the end of the year. So it was ended just under 20% loss for the year 2022. Now, of course, the next 2 years were great. 24% gain, then 23% gain, back to back.
That's what we remember.
And so if you look at it, though, the last 3-year period from 2022 all the way through the end of 2024, the total gain was actually only 24% because it went down and we had to come back up.
Right.
And so that's actually an average of only 7.26.
But we think we're averaging 24%.
Yeah, because for 2 years we had 24% each year, but if you take 3 years, the average is only 7%. And that's really key. We don't know when those bad years are going to come, but when they do, it really messes up your average returns, especially if you're taking money out, and we'll talk about that.
That's why everything changes during retirement.
And, the bond market has been shaky for the last several years because interest rates kept rising. But one of the problems is there's a lot of that debt now that's coming up for refinancing, and a lot of short-term debt that the Treasury Department has to now refinance for either more short term or longer term. And with interest rates so high, that's going to cause massive issues with the debt and paying off debt, especially as the government keeps seeming to spend more every year, no matter who's president.
Right.
So the bond market may be shaky for a while, but if interest rates start to go down, that can help bond rates. It can, or not bond rates, but it can help bond funds.
Right.
So why is that?
Well, if interest rates go down, then the bonds you bought at a higher interest rate will be worth more than the new bonds that are available. And if that's the case, your bond market, your bond funds will go up in value, which is a good thing. It's better than the other way, where if the interest rates are really low and it starts going up, then you start losing money. That's why people lost $2 trillion over when the Federal Reserve started raising rates a couple years ago.
Now, here's what happens with the Federal Reserve interest rates. It seems like there's a lot of correlation. It looks like the market crashes. If you remember, there's a crash in 2000, a crash in 2008, a short crash in 2020. But this is not the market. This is the Federal Reserve, right?
Yes. So it looks like the market, but it's the Federal Reserve. We talked about the 2 great years, and then the first thing happened is the dot-com bubble. In 2000, we had that huge crash because it became too expensive for companies to borrow money. And then they dropped the rates really low, and then they started raising rates again to control the market because the market was going crazy again, and until it dropped. And this time it was a double drop. You had the housing market drop and the stock market drop, so it was elongated. They dropped the rates really low. It's the lowest rates we've had for a long period of time, and then they started raising rates again right before COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we had a small crash. It was the smallest or the shortest crash in history. It was only 1 month. In March of 2020, it crashed, and that concerned people. But what did the government do? Instead of just controlling this way, they printed $3 trillion and dumped them in the market. What happens when you give $3 trillion to the market? Well, it's going to skyrocket. And that's what we've seen a lot of it. It's skyrocketed way up there, and so the inflation has gone crazy. And even though the Federal Reserve chairman didn't know why inflation is happening, I mean, he should have attended a high school economics class, right? We learned in high school what?
That if you print money and you add more to the economy,
supply, then inflation is going to go up, and that's really what's happening. They haven't really been able to control that inflation. So we'll see what happens going forward. But you see, it hasn't really dropped yet. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a few small drops, but we haven't seen a huge drop all the way down to near zero like we've had the last couple major market crashes. So that's what we should be looking for in conjunction with the market crash. And so is there going to be a crash in 2025? Well, there's an article that came out recently that identifies 7 risk factors for the market in 2025. First of all, inflation is still there. It's still with us, even though it's more under control maybe than it was a couple of years ago. High inflation is still here.
Yeah, once you've printed the money, you can't get it out of the system as very well.
And the public debt just keeps getting bigger and bigger. That's going to potentially cause higher taxes in the future and other problems that'll mess up the market. There's the barbell effect. There's tariffs coming up. There's Federal Reserve, which pivot, and they might pivot back and then pivot forward again. There's a lot of different ways that can go. And there's consumer anxiety about housing. And then just an overall murky market picture. There's a lot of moving parts, and we're in a very weird time, both politically, in the world climate, and still with inflation and so on. So there's a lot of risk factors for a crash coming up soon.
And one thing not listed here is the commercial real estate. We'll talk about that a little later, but this article didn't list that.
And here we go. So Fitch and others are predicting a commercial real estate crash that's going to be worse than 2008.
Most people don't realize that because they're not going to work anymore, right? They're working from home.
But that's exactly why.
Yeah, they're not seeing that 75% of commercial real estate is sitting empty. That means these companies are heating and cooling empty space and nobody's there. And so the value of that building has dropped considerably. And commercial real estate is usually done on a 5-year balloon rate. And for the last 2 years, the banks have been putting off the refinancing of these balloon rate bubble, but it's happening. But the regulators are cranking out on them and said, you got to refinance these. And I know one of my friends, his company is just giving the keys back to 2 of the buildings. They own several buildings, but 2 of the buildings, they see no way out, so they're giving it back to the bank. The bank's going to have to take them at a big loss. And that's just one friend I know. And what about companies all over the country? When that happens, 47% of commercial real estate is held by regional banks. Regional banks have 47% of the money in there, and those are really money makers for hedge funds, for all sorts of mutual funds. When that crashes, it's going to pull everything down.
And then we have this bellwether, Warren Buffett, a very famous investor in America. And that's a lot of zeros there. He's got $325 billion in cash, according to a recent report. And that means he's got, I think, more money in cash than
First
actually
time.
in the market.
First time in history. More money in cash than in the market. And in fact, usually when he has a lot of cash, he buys back his own stock. He's not doing that. Why? He's looking for the market to be on sale. It'll be on sale when it crashes big time.
And Warren Buffett has missed out on a bunch of gains, but his number one rule of investing, if you know much about Warren Buffett, you may have heard this before. His rule number one is never lose money.
Okay, we got that, but what about rule number 2?
Rule number 2 is never forget rule number 1.
There you go.
So you can Google Warren Buffett and his rules for investing, but those are the 2 most important rules. Don't lose money and don't lose money.
Because when you lose money, you got to climb out of a hole. And he knows this, and that's why he's put it in cash, because when everybody else is trying to climb out of a hole, he'll be on top of that.
But over the long term, the market's going to go up. We'll be fine, right? Eventually, it does go up. Well, imagine you get a cut on your arm, and blood is gushing out everywhere. It's a big mess, and we rush you to the hospital so the doctor can get ready to stitch you up. But then you tell the doctor, no, wait. I want the blood that I lost to come back in my arm first, and then you can stitch me up.
And why do we bring that up? Well, because a lot of people that think about the market that way, we want the money to come back into our accounts before we make any changes. That doesn't make any sense. You've already lost a lot of money. It's not coming back. You're going to have to grow from where it is. So let's try to fix it. Stop the bleeding first. And then if you want an infusion, we'll work on that.
Yeah, we can give you a blood transfusion afterward, but the most important thing is stop the bleeding. And we're coming off of a couple really good years, which means, you ever heard the buy low and sell high for investing? It's high. It's been high for a really long time, actually. It hasn't been a big crash that was extended since about 2008. There was a small crash in 2022. There was a small crash in 2020. Both of them recovered fairly quickly. What's going to happen in the future? You have to have a place to draw from in those bad years in retirement.
Like that old country song, know when to walk away.
All right. So here is the actual S&P returns from 2000 to 2023. It began in January 2000 to December of 2022, so beginning 2023.
And you can see it's gone up. It's like a mountain. It's climbing that mountain. It's gone very high. So what is the actual average rate of return from 2020 to 2023?
From 2000
to 2023. Put that in the comments. Let's see what you guys got.
This
12%. 8%? Okay.
Yeah, most people are thinking 7, 8, 9% was the average, but really the average was only 4.28%.
Daniel, how is that possible? I know I got more than that.
Well, you might have gotten more than 4.28% because you were investing over the last 20 years.
You mean regularly investing in my paycheck? Every paycheck, money was going in?
Yeah, so count up all the money in your 401k. The vast majority, in many cases, is money that you put in and your employer matched, not really market growth.
Because set and forget, you don't think about you're putting money in the market, but it's coming out of your paycheck every week or every 2 weeks and going in there. And so since you're not thinking about it, you see your value is rising, but it's really your money. So what happened?
In 2000, we had the dot-com crash, and that was a 50% loss over a 3-year period. To gain back to zero from that, you had to gain 100% just to break even.
Yeah.
And then we lost 50% again. We had to gain 100% just to break even. So for the first 13 years of this century, there was no return, and that's before fees, before taxes. So an average return of zero.
So a lost decade or more.
Since that time, it did very, very well. And still, the average was only 4.28% over that time period.
So if you didn't take the risk, what other option did you have?
Well, back in January of 2000, you could have bought a 20-year treasury for 6.86%. Guaranteed for 20 years.
So I should sell everything and buy treasuries, right?
Well, what's what you could have done. If you had $1 million in 2000, 20 years later, you would have $2.4 million with all the market risk.
All the heart attacks.
Or $3.7 million in 20-year treasuries.
And that's what I meant. You don't necessarily have to take a risk in order to have a decent rate of return. Now, who would have known back then that treasury would do so well and the market would do so poorly? We don't. But when you retire, the game changes. You're in a different stage in life. And for that, you need to have a fiduciary, that, especially a tax attorney, that can really sit down and talk to you. And it's for free. Click on that link, make that appointment, and we'll talk to you free and answer your questions.
So,
otherwise, you might end up like this dog here. He's really smart. They trained him. Look at how smart he is. You don't really know how smart he is until the very end.
You found the treat. Oh, look what you missed out on. And now look, he's going to spit it out.
That's how smart he is. He realizes he wants a big pile. And that's really what we're talking to you guys about, is because to have the bigger pile, you need to have all the information and not lose out on the market crashes, okay?
So some people say, well, you just cherry-picked a perfect time in history to make that point. So, yes, we did, but it gets worse on different time periods. So let's look every 15-year period from 1996 to 2022.
So not cherry-picking anything.
We add a year, take off a year, add a year, take off a year. And the average for all of those was only 5.16%. Only one time was the 15-year average over 8%.
And that was in 2007, 2021. And even in the last 3 years, as we talked about, 7.21, right?
But even if we go back farther, remember that 13-year period of zero returns? Before that, there was a 26-year period of zero returns. Before that, there was a 52-year period of zero returns.
Now, we do have to point out this is inflation adjusted and doesn't include dividends. And that's really the story behind this. Why do people invest in the market if they did so poorly? Well, because the market was first designed that you buy a piece of the business and you get some of the profits. That was dividends. But when we got rid of the pensions, the federal government started pushing the 401ks and the TSPs and all that to automatically put money in the stock market. And now we started looking for stock market growth more than dividends. There are still good dividend-paying stocks out there, and there's a good place to be. Even if the market goes up or down, you're going to get those dividends. But be aware, the stock market is not really the place to get rich. Now, you could get lucky, and some things you do, but you can't count on that when you're retired.
All right, so this is every single bear market since 1929. Bear markets when you lose at least 20%. And it's happened 16 times. It happens every 5 years. It's actually 17 times because the one in 2022 is not showing here yet. And it lasts about a year and a half on average. That's the most surprising thing a lot of people find about bear markets. It doesn't happen in one day. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and have half your money gone. But it does decrease over a year and a half or more sometimes.
And that's when it's a real bear market, when it does go for a year and a half. If it only happens for a month or two or less than a year, then you don't kind of forget about it, and it doesn't take as long to catch back up. But a year and a half, it can take a while.
And so if you're within 5 years of retirement and you have a big crash, it might take you another 5 years just to break even, and that's not any more growth before retirement. So
and what do you do to spend money at that point? You're waiting for the market to come back. You're waiting for blood to get back into the system, right? So you can't spend it.
So there are some solutions to doing that. One of the things people say is you should diversify, right?
Yeah, so if I got all my money in this boat, it's floating on the market, and all my stock is floating there, and you say, Daniel is my investment advisor, and say, hey, let's diversify. Let's buy 4 more boats and put your stock in 5 boats, so that way, and if any one boat sinks, it's not going to kill you. Is that a good idea?
Well, the problem is they're all boats.
Yeah, if they're all in the same pond, and what happens when the tsunami hits, everything's going to be affected. So really, the diversification is 2 different kinds of diversification. There's opinion-based assets and contract-based assets. Opinion-based assets are anything that is based on somebody else's opinion. Your house, the stock market, gold even, silver, all that's based on somebody else's opinion. And then you might ask, what is contract-based assets then? Contract-based assets, cash, CDs, insurance contracts, rental contracts.
Anything that you know what the value is, or at least some minimum value that's guaranteed in writing.
Yeah, mortgage is a contract-based asset. So those are all different assets that are based on contract. You know what it's going to be, and you don't have to worry. Imagine if your mortgage changed every month based on market opinion. That could be a problem. Or your bank account. So we got to diversify between the 2 different kinds. And there's a different kind of diversification as well. It's tax diversification. We'll talk about that later.
Again, insufficient data leads to bad decisions. We want to give you complete and full information so you can make good decisions about your money. So we talked about risk.
Right.
There's 3 killers in retirement: risk, fees, taxes. We're going to get to all of them.
So
But
what's worse than risk?
Fees. Fees are sometimes worse than risk. A lot of our clients, when they first come to us, they're saying, well, I'm paying 1% to my advisor. Well, you might be, and that's already, we'll show you how that could be bad enough. But you might be paying mutual fund expenses, trading costs, a cash drag. A lot of times we analyze clients' portfolios and we find that they come to us when they're already paying maybe 3% or 3.5%, not just 1%.
So why do we say fees are worse than risk? Well, for risk, at least you have the potential of growth. Fees is just money coming out. You're not getting anything out of it, really, in most cases. Now, some people are getting some good advice, so it's not bad in all cases, but you got to really believe that you're getting something out of it, right? So let's talk about fees. All right, so if I have $500,000 and I go to Daniel here and said, Daniel, what can you do for me for $500,000?
Well, let's say I'm going to give you 5% return for the next 25 years, which is more than the average of the S&P did for the last 22 years or so from 2000 2022.
Okay, I get that, but now what are you going to charge me for a fee?
It's 1.2 million of growth.
Okay.
Don't forget, it's 1.2 million.
That's a lot of money. Yeah, that sounds good.
So I'm going to charge you a 1% fee.
That sounds reasonable. I mean, we got $1.2 million
every year.
but it's only 1% compared to.
Also on the $500,000 that you already had that I did not earn for you. I charge a fee on that.
But I'm going to get $1.2 million in growth. I think that's reasonable.
Okay. Well, we'll count up all that money that you pay over the next 25 years as $217,000 in fees.
That's money out of my account into your account. That's
Exactly.
a lot of money. And so if it's not in my account, what else happens?
Now you have lost opportunity costs. Now that those fees are not in your account earning money.
They're earning money in your account.
That's another $159,000 of lost fee. And then if you add those together, that's $376,000 that you actually lost. And it was only a 1% fee.
Wow.
Only. So when we look at that compared to the total $1.2 million of growth that you made, 31% of growth went away to fees.
Wow. And that's only 1%. If you're paying 2 or 3%, good night. Wow. That's a lot of money going out of your pocket.
And we find clients all the time. They come to us and they actually are paying 2, 3, 4% even in fees sometimes. So
the
be very
fees have
careful.
a compounding effect. Okay, fees have a compounding effect, and you don't want that in your assets. Let's take a look at the Bob and Carrie case study of the week. Both age 65, retired 2 years ago. Bob is an engineer. Carol's a state employee. Carol's got a $24,000 pension. Bob's got a Social Security of $28,000, and Carol's got a Social Security of $26,000. But they have $1.6 million in assets that they're not using. Why is that? Well, they're worried about some stuff. They're worried about the market being too high, about losses, money running out. That's the biggest fear people have. Taxes, unknown fear. We have no idea what tax is going to be. Then fees, beneficiaries, daily volatility, low returns. We have no idea. All these things. That's why they're not spending their money. They've had the same advisor for 22 years, but they don't have a plan.
And they're sure they're only paying 1% to their advisor, but we found that they're actually paying 3% to their advisor on average, which is $49,000 every year to the advisor.
That's a college tuition, guys.
And they're exposed to a $790,000 potential loss in the next bear market.
And that's what they're really worried about, because they're afraid if they spend money and they lose $800,000, they won't be able to get back to where they need to be.
And that's a 97% they'd have to gain to break even. So we were able to reduce their fees by about $32,000 a year. So now they're down to 17 instead of $49,000 a year, and reduce the risk. So now they know the most they could lose in the worst crash will be about $150,000 or 9.4%. That's a lot easier to recover from if you have that kind of loss compared to losing almost $800,000.
So they only have to gain 10%, and they feel comfortable doing that. So now they can spend money traveling and doing the things they wanted to do.
So that's risk and fees. Now, the third killer in retirement is taxes. We're going to talk about taxes now. We'll talk about recent tax laws that have come recently and ones that are coming up soon. We're not going to talk about political. There's a lot of laws being proposed, good and bad, and we'll talk about that once any of those actually get passed or have a very good chance of passing. So right now, we'll just talk about what's going to happen if nothing happens, if nothing gets changed over the next year or so. First of all, you will pay taxes. Resistance is futile. We know that you always pay taxes.
Daniel likes this. He's a tax attorney, so he likes this. But the reason he likes this is because if you know you're going to pay taxes, then get somebody like him that understands the tax code and get it to work for you.
So forget taxes for a minute, all right? Raz, you and I own Higher Ground Financial Group together. We're business partners, but let's decide we're going to start a new business.
All right, you go start it. I'm going to be on this side. You go start this business. You can put all your hard work, sweat, and tears into it.
All right, so I'm going to own 75% of the company.
No, you own all of it. But Guido, Uncle Sam's nephew, comes over and says, "You're doing business in the U.S. Uncle Sam's going to want some of that money. We'll do 10%."
10%. Okay. Only so I own 90% of my company now.
Yeah, and as you grow, you work hard, you get more money, you're getting successful. I say, hey, it's 12%. Then I come back next year. No, it's going to be 15%. Then I come back next year. No, it's going to be 24%. Hey, I think it's 37%. And you're looking at me like, how do you keep changing these things? You're not even putting any work into this thing. I'm doing all the work.
But you have a contract with me that you get to change your percentage of my company with no input from me.
So how soon would you like to get Guido out of your life?
I would love to dissolve that partnership as soon as possible. Now, think about it. If you have even $1 in a 401k, IRA, TSP, 403b, something like that, it's tax deferred. That means you're telling Uncle Sam, I know what the taxes would be if I bought you out today, but I'm not going to do that. You decide whatever you want to charge me 20 years from now, that'll be fine with me.
And a lot of folks didn't really have an opportunity to get rid of the taxes earlier because the Roth didn't happen until well into their investment years. So, but there are opportunities now that we can talk about.
Yes. So what's happening? They're on sale right now. As far as the current laws, I know there's been a lot of proposals to extend these tax cuts, and you can see why there's a lot of interest in extending them. Because if we let them expire for 2026, the 12% goes up to 15, 22 goes to 25, 24 goes to 28. So those rates are going up. Now, a lot of people are talking about that. What is a bigger deal, in my opinion, is that the brackets themselves are scheduled to shrink in 2026.
So if I'm making $300,000, Daniel, what tax rate?
Well, let's say you're making $300,000 and you're married. You have all the way up to $394,000 this year to stay in the 24% bracket.
So I'm pretty safe.
That's there on the left side. And yeah, you have $100,000 of room. You could do Roth conversions or other things and still be only at 24% bracket. And then 28 doesn't sound that much worse than 24, does it? I mean, 28%, I mean, is you're going up, but you lose $100,000 of room, more than $100,000 of room in that bracket.
So I'll actually be in the 33% tax bracket because I'll be over 300,000.
Yeah, it's actually, you
16%.
16% difference, or 16% difference. 28 versus 24 is 16% higher, and that's only if you're in the 28%. So you might go up 2 or even 3 brackets, not just one bracket, in a year or so if the rates don't get extended.
So you're actually thinking about 20 or 30 or 40% higher taxes, even though it's only going up 6, 7, 8, 9% points, but it's actually 30 or 40% higher.
Yeah, I mean, 33% bracket would be 37% more than 24%.
That's
so
crazy.
It's really important to take advantage while you know you can. We don't know if they're going to get extended or not, but they are scheduled to increase in the next year or so. So now is the time to use the rest of the room in that bracket if possible. So here's the other thing. We have long-term capital gains. And are you always going to pay 15 or 20%?
Everybody thinks 15% is what you got to pay, but you know what? Look at that $96,000 number. The top number there, $96,000. So long as your joint income is below that after your deduction, that means you're getting $120,000 minus the $26,000 deduction. You're still paying 0% taxes. So if all your income is Social Security, let's say $60,000, and you get another $60,000 of capital gains, you're paying 0 taxes on that capital gains. Only if you're over $96,000 adjusted gross income do you pay 15%, and then if you're over $600,000, you pay 20%. But that's only federal. Then you got state and local, so you could pay more there.
Exactly. And so we've had clients that come to us and say, well, I'm going to sell this property and I'm going to pay 30 or 35% in total taxes when you count all this state and local. And
same with a business.
tax.
If you're selling a business, dental practice or any kind of practice, you could end up paying a lot of money.
But the real tax system is more complicated than just the brackets. If all you need to know is the brackets, you can Google those. You don't need a tax attorney.
Right.
But there's required minimum distributions, there's Social Security, there's Medicare premiums, Roth conversions. All of these have a lot of moving parts for taxes.
So we got to slide in all of these except for higher Medicare premiums. This is a little known, what is it, Aunt Irma? Uncle Sam's?
Yes, Irma. Excuse me. Medicare is more expensive if you have higher income.
So they take it out of your money as a tax to begin with, and then they charge you even more money if you make money.
And so the way the IRMA works, and a lot of people get really frustrated about this, is say, if I do a Roth conversion, my income is now higher, and I could be paying $500 a month for Medicare.
Yes.
That's crazy. Why would anybody intentionally do that? Well, remember what we said at the beginning. Most clients working with us save over $1 million in taxes by doing a number of different strategies, one of which might be Roth conversions. And if one of the consequences of that is you pay a few $100s extra for Medicare for a couple of years or a few years during a transitionary period, I think that's a good trade-off.
Yeah, don't stop and look at a tree. Let's go through this forest and get on the other side. All right?
All right. So how do RMDs work?
RMDs. Most of our clients think RMDs are a 4-letter word. RMDS. 4 letters, yep. So at age 73, it used to be 70 and a half, then now it's 73. Unless you're under 66, I think it'll be 75 at 33. Anyways, you take all your whole balance and divide it by 26.5 because that's your life expectancy. You may not have known that, but the IRS put a life expectancy on you. So if you take $1 million divided by 26.5, you get $37,000. So whether you want it or not, you got to take it out. You got to pay taxes, and you can't even convert it. You got to take it out and spend it.
We get that question a lot. Can I convert this required distribution to Roth? Nope, you're not allowed to. You have to take the RMD first. Then you could do a Roth conversion with more money if you want and pay more taxes. Yep. So it's important to anticipate those RMDs and see what you can do.
So this is a chart. So every year you have a lower number you're going to divide that your amount with. So when you divide by a lower amount, then you get a bigger amount of money coming out of your account. All the way to age 120 when you got to take half of it out.
All right, and then capital gains. So what are phantom gains?
Most people have gotten a 1099. You might have gotten a 1099, and you think, well, I didn't spend any money last year. Well, what happens is your fund manager would have sold a highly appreciated stock to buy another one, and that's a good thing, and then pass the capital gains to you because he doesn't pay that. And rebalancing automatically triggers that. So if you've got your brokerage account set up to rebalance, which is a good thing, it'll help you protect your money. It's going to trigger the phantom gains. And then when these gains happen, these long-term gains can actually create ordinary income tax to go up. So you got to be careful, and that's why planning with a tax attorney is much better than a CPA. CPA is just going to say, this is what you owe, pay it or go to jail. Okay? So let's move on and talk about the 3.8% net investment income tax. I know we said we're not going to talk about the political, Daniel, but this is a tax. They keep saying tax the rich, tax the rich. And if you're making over $250,000, they're going to add another 3.8% net investment tax on, and they're going to calculate it based on all your capital gains, dividends, interest, annuity payments, passive business income, rents, everything. So that's something that can change. If it's 7% or 9%, 12%, and nobody's going to really care because it's only taxing the rich, right? You're rich. So just be careful with that.
All right, now we have Social Security. You have a choice of between 62 and 70 to start Social Security.
When's the best time? Let's put it in the comments here. When's the best time to take Social Security?
Should you take it now or should you wait as long as possible? What do most advisors say?
Well, most people on the chat line are saying wait as long as possible. Wait as long as possible.
And I'm here to tell you that most of you that are watching this video should probably not wait as long as possible. You should probably take it now, as soon as possible.
Well, what if I don't need it?
Well, that's exactly why you should take it as soon as possible, and we'll talk about that. So first of all, let me talk what do I mean by as soon as possible. I mean full retirement age if you're still working, because if you are under full retirement age, then you are only allowed to make about $22,000 of income, and if you make more than that, your Social Security gets taken away pretty rapidly. So keep that in mind, but you could retire early and get other income that's unearned, like IRAs or
your spousal
pensions.
income, your rental income. That's not earned income, so you're okay with that.
Yes. So either retire, or if you're still working, then take your Social Security at full retirement age.
Or if you're consulting, have your own company, 1099, not a W-2 or a corporation, you can play with that a little bit and get some benefits.
Yeah, there's a ways to defer some of that for a few years to still be able to get your Social Security. So the potential benefit stops increasing at age 70, so definitely don't wait past that. But let me give you some of the reasons why I say it makes sense to take it early. First of all, it's taxed. When I was first learning about this, it was so annoying to me because Social Security is a tax coming out of my paycheck now, and then you tell me I'm going to pay tax again when I receive it.
And I said, son, don't worry about it. You're so young, you probably won't even get Social Security.
So for me, it's just a tax. That's even worse somehow.
Yeah. Now, we're getting some really good questions in the chat line. I just want to make sure that you understand we may not be able to get to the questions right now, so make that appointment. Just click on the link. It's free. We'll answer your questions at that point. Okay?
So how does it tax? Provisional income is 50% of Social Security plus all your other income, even non-taxable interest from muni bonds. All of that together makes provisional income. If the provisional income is over certain thresholds, then you're going to have up to 85% of your Social Security will be taxable.
That's all very confusing, Daniel. Show me an example so we can try to understand this.
Yes. Well, the important thing on this side, remember, is 15% of it is always tax-free. Maybe more.
For now.
Yes.
So
this is how it works.
So if I'm turning 62 and my wife's turning 62, we both are ready to take Social Security. I decide my wife's going to wait. I'm going to take $20,000. We need $60,000 to live. So if I take $20,000 for Social Security, I'll need $40,000 out of my IRA just to make that $60,000 work. And so I end up with $11,000 of my Social Security is going to be taxable. That's 55% of it. So that's not too bad. Daniel, on the other hand.
So let's say we retire. My wife and I retire in the same year, and we each take $20,000 of Social Security. What that does is it lets my IRA last longer. So it only take $20,000 out of the IRA. So also my provisional income is less because only half my Social Security counts. So now my taxable benefit on the bottom right is $4,000 compared to $11,000.
That doesn't seem like a lot, but what does it really mean? So I have $11,100 of Social Security tax, then $40,000 of other income, makes $51,000 of the income that's taxable. Minus the $26,000 standard deduction, you get $24,500, which $2,500 in tax is not too bad. But look at Daniel. He pays zero in taxes. My goodness. In fact, he had $26,600 deduction. He had another $2,500 available to take out and spend. So he could actually spend $5,000 more than me and still pay zero taxes when I'm paying taxes.
Yes. So it's really important to be able to take advantage of this tax loophole and use your Social Security so that more of your income can be tax-free. So take that early. Here's another reason. If you retired at 62 and you maxed out all your earnings for Social Security, you could get as much as $2,500 a month if you retire today. But if you wait till 70, you're going to get $4,500 a month.
Wow, that's almost $2,000 more. I think you should wait, right?
Yeah, $2,000 a month or more. But you have to wait 8 years to get that. So what do you miss? You miss the $2,500 you could have gotten for 96 months. That is a $246,000 loss.
Wow, $250,000. I think you should take it now. That's what I said. Take it now.
So it takes a long time to break even. You are going to make more money, but it takes you 10 years, all the way through age 80, to break even if you wait.
And
Now-
if you take it and you're not taking money out of your IRA as much, so that'll grow and this money will grow. So if you grow at just 6%, you're at $315,000. Which break even now is what?
Age 83. Now, Raz, take a guess. If you're 62 today, what is your life expectancy as an American at 62?
I wonder what it is. The IRS knows, right?
Yeah, it's 83. It's exactly 83. The Social Security Department is not stupid. They want to give you the same exact amount of money no matter when you take it. So it's always the same amount of money if you live to an average life expectancy, except if you consider taxes and inflation.
Right.
So we had about a 3% increase for inflation this year.
Does that sound reasonable? No, not really.
Do anybody think inflation was really only 3% this past year? No. So why why is that? Well, I think they would go bankrupt even faster if they paid you the real inflation.
Yes.
So one thing you know about Social Security is today's dollars are worth more than tomorrow's dollars. So those are three reasons: break-even analysis, the inflation, and then the taxes. So now you're thinking, why is nobody else saying this? Why do all the advisors, why is all the TV, the radio personalities, why do they all say, wait as long as possible? Well, most of that information is given for the average American. The average American is not my client. The average American is not you on this webinar. Why do I know this? You're watching this webinar because you are concerned about paying too much in taxes. It is a tax webinar. So that means you are not the average American. The average American makes about $35,000 a year, retires with less than $10,000 saved total. So the average American only has Social Security. And so, yes, they need to wait as long as possible, probably also work in retirement years just to put food on the table. If you are not in that position because you're paying taxes, that means you have money to pay taxes on, then you are probably in a position where you could survive without Social Security. If you don't really need it, taking it now allows you to do more with it and take advantage of some things that the average American cannot do.
And then there's the unexpected. Something could happen, an accident, cancer, whatever, and might as well enjoy as much of your money as possible before that happens, right?
So here's another case study. John and Jane married Fallon jointly, age 73, $60,000 of Social Security, $15,000 of capital gains, and $45,000 of required minimum distributions.
Happy birthday.
You turn 73, pay some tax. We put them through our calculator and found out even though they're in the 12% bracket, that's the red line, they were paying 49.95% on that portion of their money. Why in the world did that happen?
That's crazy.
Well, remember the first $1,000 of required distribution caused $120 in taxes, is 12%. But what that did is that caused $850 of Social Security to now become taxable, also at 12% for $102. That caused $1,850 of capital gains to now become taxable at 15% for $277.
That's what we were talking about, cascading tax effect, right? Up to $500 almost on a $1,000 withdrawal. That's a 50% cascading tax effect. That's kind of crazy.
And that's the difference between working with a tax attorney versus a CPA or just really any advisor, because think about it. If you have an advisor right now, look at the last email or the last statement you got from your advisor.
It says, this is not tax advice. This is not legal advice.
Consult a proper tax attorney.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to talk to somebody who is qualified and able to give you that advice to minimize your taxes for the long term. Even a CPA is just going to say, well, you could defer it. Deferred taxes are the biggest scam in the IRS code today. You don't want to defer taxes. It's not kicking a can down the road. People say that. It's rolling a snowball down a hill. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We don't want those taxes to get bigger in the future. We want to minimize them for the long term. In fact, as your tax attorney, I couldn't even care less what the taxes are going to be for you this year. I care what the tax savings is going to be for you over your lifetime.
Absolutely.
So here's a guy on Twitter.
So Jeff said, my son asked what taxes are. So I gave him a bag of M&Ms and explained to him that he has to give me some. And I know how much he has to give me, but he has to guess himself. And if he gets it wrong, he goes to prison. And I didn't tell him, and he didn't say that here, but if he can change the rules. Jeff can change the rules anytime he wants, and that's the problem.
All right, so what are some tools for higher net worth families? If you are not the average American that we talked about, so what can you do to take advantage of diversifying among account types? Not just everything in IRAs. Don't have only tax-deferred products.
So that's what we talked about a little bit earlier. The opinion-based assets and contract-based assets are diversified, but you also have to have tax diversification. IRAs, Roth IRAs, non-qualified, tax-free accounts, real estate, they're all taxed differently. So if you have different products in different places where they're appropriate, you're going to be able to pick and choose what you want from different accounts to minimize your taxes.
And then consider which assets should be held in which account type. What does that mean?
Well, I've been driving around and hear on the radio all the time, hey, you can take your 401k and move it into a self-directed IRA and buy real estate with it. Isn't that a great idea?
No, it's a terrible idea. Well, think about it. If you have a rental property inside of an IRA, you have very high maintenance costs or management fees for the custodian, because it has to be a third-party custodian. Then what happens when there's maintenance, like a roof repair? Maybe you need a new roof. Where are you going to get the money for the new roof? You can't contribute more than the $8,000 into your IRA this year, so you have to borrow for it for the $20,000 roof. Well, or how are you going to get a loan? Most banks don't loan to IRAs, and the ones that do are much higher interest rate normally. And then the biggest issue with real estate inside of an IRA is the benefits you get from investment real estate, where you get a depreciation so that most of the income's tax-free to you. And then when you die, your kids get a stepped-up basis and pay no tax at all to inherit. That's all out the window inside of an IRA.
So what you're saying is real estate is actually good. It's just not inside an IRA.
Real estate can be good. We like a lot of our clients to have real estate even in retirement. It's one of the best inflation hedges, for example. Real estate's a great inflation hedge in retirement, but not inside of an IRA. What's another one people often get backwards?
As you get older, you get closer to retirement, you hear all these ads about, hey, you should you should protect your assets. You should move it into an annuity, because with an annuity, you can't lose money. So what I'm going to do is take my Apple stock that I got 20 years ago. I'm going to sell that, pay the capital gains, and put it into an annuity, because that makes sense.
That's a terrible idea.
Again?
Yeah, because think about it. You're paying capital gains on that Apple stock when you didn't need to. Then you're buying an annuity, which the annuity will give you income later, which will be income taxable. So you paid one type of tax when you didn't need to, create a worse type of tax later. So if you were going to use an annuity as part of your portfolio, you should have used your IRA for that. Because if you take an IRA and put it in the annuity, then there's no tax. It's still an IRA. And this is something that a lot of people are surprised to find out. An annuity can be held inside of an IRA just like any investment can.
So again, annuity could be a good thing for you. We don't know until we talk to you as a fiduciary, but don't put it inside your...
But there's no new tax created when you do that. And in fact, you could even convert that to Roth. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And besides Roth, there's also CRUTs. So these are the two really cool things we're going to talk about now. Roth conversions.
So Roth conversion, what is Roth first? First of all, Roth is something you pay taxes now, and you never pay taxes again in the future.
Even on the growth?
Not even on the growth. But the problem is most of you guys were not able to do a Roth because you made too much money. So with a Roth conversion, there's no income cap. Yay! That means it doesn't matter how much money you make, you can convert to Roth. What that means is you do have to pay the taxes now, but then all the growth, all of it, will be tax-free. There's a 5-year rule, though, Daniel. What's that?
So you have to wait 5 years or age 59 and a half, whichever comes first, before you can access the principal. And if you access the growth, you have to wait 5 years in any case.
So what that means is if I got $100,000 I convert to Roth, and I'm 60 years old, I convert to Roth, okay, great, I don't need it, leave it in there. 3 years later, now it's $120,000. And now one of my 13 children is getting married, so I need money. So I take money out of there. I can take the $100,000 out. I just can't take the $20,000 it grew to for 2 more years. So that's all it is.
Yep. So it's very
and
easy
one other
to use.
thing is if I convert another one the next year, it's only the first 5-year rule that counts. It doesn't extend.
For accessing the principal, that's correct. Yes. Now there's no RMDs on the IRAs if they're Roth, which is great. You can let it stay there, and in fact, when you pass away, your kids can leave it in there for another 10 years and get totally tax-free growth all the way for that.
That's the only asset they can inherit and let it grow tax-free for another 10 years. It's awesome.
Yeah. But inherited IRAs are terrible. Don't leave inherited IRAs to your kids. No. They have to pay all that tax within 10 years.
And usually it's in their highest income years because they're probably in their 50s and 60s at that point.
So how much will you actually save? Well, I'm glad you asked. I have a slide on that. This is a client of ours who is 60 years old, had $1 million in her IRA. And on the left side, you can see we calculated she was going to pay over $523,000 in taxes.
Just for the RMDs, if you waited and keep paying it each year.
Yeah. And then because she didn't need this money, she has a pension. She's going to leave this to her daughter. She's going to end up paying another $200,000 in reinvestment tax. And then her daughter is going to pay $434,000 when she dies. So that's $1.1 million in taxes, and that's if taxes don't ever go up for the rest of her life.
Right.
So instead, she converts it to Roth. It costs her $300,000, but that's it. Now there's no more tax on the growth. It's all tax free, and then her daughter inherits it completely tax free as well. So it's a huge savings, and you might be looking at that thinking, "Man, that's depressing. $300,000 in taxes." Well, keep in
It's
mind,
not your money anyways.
yeah, the $1 million she has, it's not her money anyway. $700,000 is her money. The $300,000 is the IRS share today. If she waits, the IRS share is $1.1 million. So $300,000 is actually a really good deal. But even if that's you agree with that, where are you going to get the money to pay that tax? Because it's always better to pay it from some other bucket instead of withholding from the account.
Right.
So we have another solution for that idea. It's called a CRUT, C-R-U-T.
Charitable Remainder Unit Trust. So what is that, Daniel?
A charitable remainder unit trust is a type of irrevocable trust that you can put in stocks or rental properties or really any asset.
Even a business. So if you're selling a business, instead of paying 32% capital gains, you put part of it or all of it into a CRUT and not pay the capital gains.
And so if you have some property you're trying to sell, you can first set up the trust, and then you can donate that property to the trust. The trust sells it with no capital gains. Then you get a giant tax deduction. Could be up to 50% of the balance that you're contributing. And then you get about 5% of pension for the rest of your life. So it provides a pension for you. And when you die, the remainder has to go to charity. So that's the charitable part of this charitable remainder trust. And if your plan is to leave this money to your kids and not necessarily to charity, keep listening. There's a solution for that as well. But this is how it works. Okay? So let's look at this example. We had a client, she had $500,000 in Microsoft stock that she bought 25 years ago when it was a couple dollars or whatever, and now it's thousands of percent gains, and all of it is basically capital gains. If she sells the $500,000 in stock, she'll pay over $100,000 in capital gains. So instead, she can set up this trust, donate the stock to the trust sells the stock. You save $100,000 in capital gains. Then, because she's 65, she gets a $222,000 charitable deduction. That's the present value of the amount that's going to charity someday. And that deduction, she can take the $222,000 over to her IRA, make it Roth with no taxes. Well, that's cool. Then she's going to get a pension, $25,000 a year, which is 5%.
But she doesn't need that pension.
No, she already has a pension and other income. She said, I don't really need this $25,000. It is taxable income. But what I can do with it, because I was going to give the $500,000 to my kids. So instead, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give the $500,000 to my church because it's in the trust. It has to go to charity. But the pension is going to buy life insurance for $1 million.
Tax-free.
Tax-free. So now my kids get $1 million tax-free. The church gets $500,000. My IRA, which is now Roth, which cost me nothing to make it Roth, that goes to my kids tax-free as well. So everybody wins except for the IRS. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And we're not cheating anything. This is the actual laws and rules in place. And so you got to know the rules. That's why you have to have a tax attorney. So make that appointment. Click that link. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. We'll answer your questions.
So what's the highest taxes have ever been historically? What do you think it was?
Put in the chat. Oh, we got 60%.
It's 37% now. It'll be 39.6% next year.
Somebody just put in 90%. They think we're in a communist country, Daniel.
Well, you're right. It actually was 94% was the highest tax bracket we've ever had in this country. Most people are surprised when they see this slide, but really look at the line for only $10,000.
The blue line on the bottom is $10,000 tax bracket. So if you made only $10,000, you were actually up to 42% taxes. Okay, think about that. You may be right. You may be in a lower tax bracket when you retire, but if the tax rate is that much higher, instead of paying, save 12% taxes when you're working, now you're paying 42%. That's crazy.
Again, insufficient data causes undue stress. We want to make sure we give you complete and proper information. I want to make a couple notes about the estate tax. The exclusion for 2025 is $13.99 million, so just about $14 million you can leave without any tax at all. Now, it's important to know that is same as gift tax, so you can actually give away that. The $19,000, it was $18,000, now it's $19,000 a year you can give away. That's if you don't want to file a gift tax return. But you can give away more. You just have to file a gift tax return. And as long as your estate is under that $14 million, you don't have to worry about any taxes. But you should be concerned if you have several $millions of estate. You should be concerned because in about a year, it is scheduled to drop in half, the exclusion.
Right.
Anything above that is 40%.
So you don't pay taxes and your kids don't pay taxes. So the gift receiver doesn't pay taxes either. You just have to file a gift tax return to let the IRS know. That's it. And so if your estate's going to be over $14 million or even maybe $6 million in next year, you may end up paying 40% taxes. So yeah, think about that. You got to fix that.
Yes. So there's a lot of different documents you can have. Power of attorney,
By the way,
wills,
we get
trusts.
questions. Yes, we do trusts, we do wills, we do power of attorneys, medical directives, we do all these different trusts for our clients.
Yes. And one thing to know about the trust is if you have the best estate plan in the world, the beneficiary designation trumps everything. So if you had a messy divorce 20 years ago and you gave half your money out of your 401k to your ex, but you forgot to change the beneficiary, even though you have a new spouse potentially, when you pass away, the rest of your 401k is going to your ex. Yes. So make sure it matches. Make sure the beneficiaries match everything that is in your current estate plan. And there's different types of assets that you can leave to your kids. There's some good, some bad. Real estate, mutual funds, stocks, bonds. These are great. Inherited IRAs. These are terrible. So why is that? Real estate, mutual fund, stocks, those have no capital gains at death. You get a stepped up basis. But if it's an IRA, everything's taxable and they have to pay it all within 10 years. What's the best thing to leave to kids? Either Roth or life insurance. Both of those are completely tax-free, very efficient, very advantageous for estate planning. Okay? And why do we say that you should not leave your paid-off house to your 3 kids?
Well, they're happy now. Look at them. They love each other. They get along great. But when you die, one wants to sell, one wants to rent it, and the other says, well, can I move in?
And now these are your 3 kids.
What a shame. And we've seen that over and over again where kids were very happy and then this happens. So let's fix this. Make the trust and make sure you put it together correctly so they don't have to fight about it. So the other tax is the market risk. You got to be aware of that. You have long-term care costs. It doesn't mean you have to buy long-term care insurance. You just have to be aware of it and figure out a way to pay for it. And then inflation, that's not going away. And then we have boomerang children. You've been paying for your children all your life. You pay for the girlfriend, the boyfriend, pay for the food, their school, everything. And launch them. And they come back. What do?
Well, here's a solution.
The kids won't move back home if they can't find it. Buy an RV, and they can't find it. Don't give them an address. There you go.
So what happens if you choose to click the link here and make an appointment with us? If you click the link, you make a video call with us. It's stage 1. We have 4 stages in our process. Stage 1 is just getting to know you. We assess your current situation. We want to know all your dreams. And Raz, how much does this video call cost?
Absolutely free. It doesn't cost you anything. And any questions you have, any burning questions you have, we'll answer that for free. It doesn't cost you a dime.
Okay, so you'll meet with Raz or one of people on our team to get to know where you are. And then stage 2, if you want to meet with the tax attorneys, then it's me or one of the other tax attorneys here at Higher Ground. We will give you a pre-qualification offer. So there's several meetings, at least 2 or 3 meetings here. Stage 2, we give you a tax plan, a risk analysis, a fee analysis, an income plan, talk about estate planning, and we talk about all our fees and costs to work with us. So this meeting with the tax attorneys to give you real, actual legal and tax advice, how much does that cost?
With an income plan where you see most of your advisors don't give you an income plan. They just talk about growing your money. This reduces it all the way down to $500 for those that attended the webinar.
It's a $6,000 value, but it's only $500.
And it's refundable. So if we do all this and you find no value in it, we'll give you your money back. We want to make sure you find value in what we do for you. And then after that, then we know what it's going to cost you. So at this point, we can show you exactly what to fix and what it's going to cost you.
Raz, if you take stage 2, do you have to work with us? Do you have to become a client?
Absolutely not.
You could take all that information to your current advisor and implement it with them. That's perfectly fine. But we'll give you all the details about what it takes to work with us. And
so in stage 3, we'll start learning about the small details. So we'll give you the overhead picture. You can do it yourself, or you can work with us. We'll do step by step, little by little, how to do it and what each step's going to cost.
So go ahead and click that link and make the first appointment. For stage 1, there's no cost for that, and we want to help you reduce your risk, fees, and taxes.
And you don't have to leave your current advisor. Okay, this is incremental changes to help you minimize your risk, fees, and taxes and have more of your money.
All right.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you guys stayed to the end. We'll see you soon on the other side of the video call.